Hello and welcome to BFS Wargaming. So today we're going to look at Warhammer 40k 9th edition core rules. We are going to look at the morale phase, and then after that we're going to take a look at some of the stratagems and how you use stratagems and how they work in Warhammer 40k 9th edition. Okay, the morale phase. So what we're going to do is, let's say the Primaris Marines have shot at the Lich Guard and they killed 3 of them. Okay, and then they charged in and they killed another 2. So the Lich Guard hit back and they killed 3 of the Primaris Marines. Now, what you have to do is you alternate. Obviously if you've got more than units on the table, you alternate with your opponent doing morale phases depending on whose turn it is. Whose turn it is to start. So the Primaris Marines will start as their turn. So they'll take a morale test. So their leadership, because they still have their sergeant, their leadership 8, and they have lost 3. So what you do is you roll a d6. So I roll a d6 and I rolled a 2. Now note that if you roll a 1, it's always a pass irrespective. Okay, so you will pass if you roll a 1. So 2 plus the 3 that I've lost, so you add the casualties, makes 5. And my leadership is 8, so it passes. If I'd rolled a 6 and the 3 added the 3 Marines that I'd lost on, that would be a 9, and that exceeds my leadership, and that would mean that I fail. Now if you fail, you lose 1 model. And then what happens is you have to roll a dice for every model left in that unit. And if that unit is under half strength of what it started for, you have to +1. So normally it would be a 1. I rolled a 5, but if you're under half strength, it means it would be a 1 or 2. That model would flee. But I rolled a 5, so the sergeant is going to stand strong. Now with the Lich Guard, we're going to do the same thing. Their leadership is 10. Okay, so what I'm going to do is they've lost 5, so I'm going to roll a dice, and I roll a 2, which makes 7, so they actually passed their leadership. But let's say that we rolled a 6, making an 11. That means that they would lose 1. Okay, so they lose 1. Their unit is now under half strength, so on a 1 or 2, the others will flee. So you roll a d6 for each remaining model in that unit. And on a 1 or 2 they would flee. I rolled 2 6s, a 5 and a 3, so I am all good with the Necrons, with the Lich Guard. So that is how morale works. So say for instance I had rolled a 2 and a 1 and a 5 and a 6, I'd have had to take away 2 more of the Lich Guard. So the next step we're going to talk about is coherency checks. So after you've done your morale, so let's say I lost 2 and I took this guy and this guy away. Okay, so now you do coherency checks. So if there is any models that are not in coherency at this stage in the morale phase at the end, then they have to be taken away until the unit is in coherency. So this model is now 2 inches away from both of these. So he would actually have to be removed. So you have to be very careful when removing models. So let's say we started at the beginning and we had these models spread out like so. And let's say I started taking, when I was losing models, I started taking them from the center. So I lost these 4. And then I lost another 1 here in the morale phase. Now with coherency check, well, these 2 are in coherency with each other, but they're not in coherency with the rest of the unit. So what happens is you have to take away the models until the whole unit is in coherency. So like if I take away him, he's still out of coherency, so I have to take away him. Now these 3 models are a coherent unit. Okay, I hope that's clear. So let's talk about stratagems. Stratagems are really important in Warhammer 40k. They can literally turn the tide of a battle. So before we go into stratagems, we're going to talk about command points. Now, command points are what you use to spend on stratagems. Now, when you create a Battleforged army, depending on the amount of points and the size of that army depends on the amount of command points you start with. So you can, for instance, for a 2,000 point game, you start with 12 command points. And then at the beginning of each of your command phases, throughout the turn, each battle round, you'll get an extra command point per turn. There are also certain armies which have relics or warlord traits where you can then gain 1 extra CP per turn. So you could be getting up to 2 CP per turn plus the 12 you start with. So there is lots of opportunity to spend command points, or CP for short, on stratagems. So every army has their own specific stratagems which they can use throughout the game. There are also 7 core stratagems which any army can use throughout the game when they need to. So the 7 core stratagems are the stratagems we're going to be talking about today. So with stratagems, you can only use a stratagem once per phase. Okay, if they're a stratagem you can use, for instance, before the game or out of a phase, that means that they're exempt from this rule and you can use them as many times as you like. The first stratagem we're going to talk about is the command reroll stratagem. Okay, this costs 1 command point and you can reroll a dice, or you can reroll a roll, should I say. So you can reroll a hit roll, you can reroll a wound roll, you can reroll a damage roll, you can reroll a saving throw, you can reroll an advance, you can reroll a charge, you can also reroll a psychic test or a deny the witch test. Now it is to be noted that you reroll, if you're rolling a charge roll, for instance, it's 2d6. So you have to reroll both of the dice. You can't just reroll one of them, you have to reroll both of them. So that is something to note. So the next stratagem we're going to talk about is counter-offensive. This is 2 command points. You have to spend 2 command points in this one. And what it is in your opponent's turn, when they have fought with one of their eligible units, then you can spend 2 CP to interrupt them before they can fight again with another, like say, charging unit, and then you get to fight with one of your eligible units. Okay, so the next stratagem is called Insane Bravery, and this means that you can automatically pass a morale test. Now this stratagem is 2 command points and you can only use it once per battle. Okay, so only once in the whole game, so you need to make sure you use it at the right time. For instance, if you lost a lot of models from a big unit and you thought, oh, I'm going to lose loads more, you might want to use it then. Or it might be that you have one last guy on an objective and you know that if he dies or runs away to morale, then you're going to lose, you're not going to score the point, so you might then use it to keep him on the point and score the objective. Okay, so the stratagem we're going to talk about now is called Fire Overwatch. So when an enemy unit declares a charge, so in this scenario the Lich Guard are going to charge the Sisters of Silence. The Sisters of Silence can pay 1 command point to fire Overwatch, which means they can fire with their guns as if it was a shooting phase, but they can only hit on a 6. So they've got bolt guns and they're in rapid fire range. So they would get 2 shots each, so that means a total of 10 shots. And they get to hit on 6s. So this was actually a pretty good roll for 10 shots. So I got 3 hits. Okay. So that is how Overwatch works. And then you would, again, roll the wound roll. So I wounded once because I got 1-5 and their toughness is higher than their strength for their weapons. And then the Lich Guard would get a save as normal, so they would get a free up save, which they saved. And then after the Overwatch has been resolved, you then roll the charge roll. Okay, so the next stratagem we're going to talk about is Cut Them Down. Now, Cut Them Down is for when you're in engagement range and the enemy unit wants to fall back. So the Sisters of Silence want to fall back out of combat because they're scared they're going to get killed. So the Necrons can play a 1 CP stratagem called Cut Them Down, and they roll 1d6 for each model in that unit that is in engagement range. So for this, that will be 5 d6s they need to roll. And for every 6 they roll, it does 1 mortal wound to the Sisters of Silence. So we have a roll, and on this occasion there was 0 6s. Okay, but if there had been 1 6, it would have been 1 mortal wound onto the Sisters of Silence. Okay, so the next stratagem is called Desperate Breakout. Now, you would use this, for instance, in this scenario, when you have a model in your unit surrounded. Okay, so because this model is surrounded, like it is, it hasn't got the fly keyword, so it can't move out of here. So which means that the rest of the unit can't get out. So with the stratagem Desperate Breakout, which is 2 command points, you can then attempt to move out over these models. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to roll a d6 for each model in your unit, and on any rolls of a 1, the model is slain. Okay, so I rolled 1 1. So the easiest thing for me to do then is just kill this model. But say for instance I kill this model for some reason, I can then move their full distance, so 7 inches, I can move out of engagement range. Okay, so now I have to end my move out of engagement range. If for instance I move with this one and I could only move to here and he was still in engagement range, then this would be slain also. Okay, and once you have fallen back, you cannot do anything else in that turn. You cannot shoot, charge, even if you have rules to allow you to do that after falling back, you cannot do it. Okay, the next stratagem is called Emergency Disembarkation. It costs 1 CP, and what it is for is in scenarios like this where your transport vehicle is surrounded by the enemy. Okay, and what happens is when the enemy destroy it, you have to get out your models in normal circumstances within 3 inches. Now, within 3 inches, I can't get this guy out without being in engagement range or overlapping the Lich Guard's base. So therefore, all my models would be destroyed. Okay, so I can't get them out because they're surrounded, all my models would be destroyed. So in normal circumstances, when you're rolling to get out of a vehicle that's been destroyed, you roll a d6 for every model, and any rolls of a 1, which I didn't roll any that time, would then be a model that is destroyed. But with emergency disembarkation, what it means is you can get out within 6 inches. So what I could do is I could get these guys out over here, so plenty of space, they'll be able to get out and they will survive. Now, what this means is that when you roll your d6 for each model, so I have 5 models in there, it means that on a 1 or a 2, that model is destroyed. So I'll roll again, and I did roll a 1, so one of the models would be destroyed, so I'd only get 4 out. Now this is really, really good for in these scenarios when you need to get those guys out, maybe get them out onto an objective. So it's a really, really nice stratagem. There is a bit of risk to it, risk reward with the 1s and 2s destroying your guys, but it's really, really good in my opinion. So yeah, that is the emergency disembarkation stratagem for 1 command point. I hope you enjoyed that look at the morale phase and look at stratagems. That is our last video on the core rules of Warhammer 40k 9th edition, but we are going to be doing more videos on the advanced rules and more intricate things such as terrain traits and all that sort of thing. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and we will see you in the next one. Stay lucky. Thanks. Bye.